I come from the culture of the Azulect people, which means I replace myself in the whole of my society. So the emptiness that a negative creates empties the vessel for pottage to sow its seeds into the rims around your lining of their soul. So if your soul becomes a water feature, the eradication effect of culture replaces the vessel and makes you a limb. So limbs are attached to the vessel so that they pour out from the source, but only vertically. So that if you address any horizontal feature, you open yourself up for embarking upon the tryptamine of an acid. So the acid breaks down the sources between each one of the apexes of a specialized front and opens it up for scattering of a variation effect. So diversity is very important to these cultures. And I don't mean diversity of thought, but diversity of genetics. So genetics is a creation of the culture that Islam preaches, but to reject Islam is not only to preach Mesopotamian ideology, but to address the nationality of security as if it was a institution rather than a assemblage of institutions. So these nationalities are highly fascistic, which means they worship one object, and that would be objectivity. Objectivity is the nature of the substance of a church. While churches do not occur in our unions since we got eradicated a long time ago, we replaced our vessels in carrying capacities along your southern border of genetics so that we can resummon the dead on Islam. So Islam is a necronomic activity to us. We believe we talk with our bodies and mime with our faces. So when we Asianize ourselves, not only do we turn into mediocre versions of a nationality, we turn into eggplants of a highly orthodox union, which means we carve out the body from the inside to reach the torso. The torso is how we hold our water weight. So we eat from ourselves rather than eat from lunches. Since lunch is a religious ideology to us, we reject this thesis and substitute it with a winter hibernation. So hibernation is constant and in dilemma of the nationality of the poor. So if you are to hibernate in a season, the effects of who queens your colony would depend upon the ethnicity of the subduer. So if you subdue an Azulect into obeying the law rejects us and substitutes rich people for quality people. And quality people are erased and given as slaves to the forebears of the rich people. So if the rich people obey the law, which they usually don't, they reckon that they can copyright us as if we are Nazis, which we are not. We are not a Nazi ideology. We are a communist ideology. So if we accept nationality at all, we obey traffic. And trafficking is how we became a state. Because state ideology exists to reject us in our entirety, we welcome poverty for the sole inclusion of establishing an autonomy that doesn't allow for richness to occur. So, much like a cancer, it eats away at the sore spots of the Mesopotamian state and traps it into a bubble. And those bubbles bleed into Egyptian society and allow for homes to replace the building codes of the state mayoral office. So if a mayoral race occurs under an ethnicity, we welcome the object of their establishment and allow for communist features of a negative object to occur. So if a negative object is in placement of the mind, which is a soul object, we establish centrality around it, which means we orbit it. So if we orbit an ideology, we record it and allow for it to replay en masse and repetitively for the limiting of all nationality except for the communist one in our own colony. So that once we colonize with other nations, there are three networks that erase the meaning of jury, ticket, and title, so that we are jurors of a record, tickets of a cost, and title of a religion. So under Azalex, we no longer accept religion. We accept records. And these records inbreed us to maintain ourselves as if we are a satanic cult of nationality towards what we call the Akkadian state, which is our lesser state. So, since we are in a satire of a parody, we eat at the state and we record our object as if it was permanent. So these permanations are layers by which we establish your society, not ours, because we are building our society to take over the rich people society. So if we give the money to the rich people, they go bankrupt.